11 wins. Honda was victorious for the first time in their IndyCar history, winning at Loudon. For the first time since '85, 9 different drivers have won races. 3,600 miles away from the first race at Miami, and less than 200 miles remain. The PPG Cup awaits a new name. From the beautiful Laguna Seca Raceway, it's the final race of the PPG IndyCar World Series. The Toyota Grand Prix of Monterey, featuring the Bank of America 300. Hello and welcome. I'm Paul Page, the final race of the IndyCar season, and this is the man where the spotlight rests. Jacques Villeneuve, you can wrap up the championship here. You must be 8th or better to do so. What does that do to your race? What does that do to the pressure?
Well, there's a lot of pressure because we can lose or win the championship this weekend, depending on what happened with Alan Sir Jr. But it's gonna the plan is gonna depend on what happens in the race. If we can stay in the lead, that's the best way to keep out of trouble. It's better than to be in the middle of the pack and try to avoid anybody. And you know, if you're trying to take it easy, you're gonna break a little earlier, and then you have the other guys fighting. Then that's when something stupid could happen. So if we can stay in the lead, that's where we're gonna try.
So it's really more dangerous to lay back and try and only be 8th.
Yeah, if you can be in the lead, it's better to stay there. If you're in the middle of the pack, then you still have to drive aggressively, so you're not laying back too much, but you don't want to make any stupid moves.
Well, Jack, we wish you the best today. Hopefully we'll see you as a champion at the end. Now, there are other drivers here going to contest his positioning. Let's go to Gary Gerald.
Well, Paul, here in the front row alongside Villeneuve, Brian Herta, the 3rd time this year that Brian...
keep our heads about us, and, you know, Jacques got the championship to think about, so, you know, maybe I can attack early, maybe I can take some chances that he can't afford to. So we just got to kind of see how it plays out. If I get an opportunity, you know, we're going to have to go for it because, you know, we're really out of the championship, so we're going to go flat out for that win.
A lot of disappointments for this team this year, but they're hoping to finish on a big note today. Now, here's another interesting part of this combination. Joining Chip Ganassi this year, Joe Montana, one of the greatest ever to play in the NFL. Give us a quick assessment now of your rookie year being associated in IndyCar racing.
Well, it's been a lot more than even I expected. I knew it was going to be a lot of fun, and the best part about it was a lot more than I did expect. And a lot of learning going on for me because I've been so close to it, both, you know, on the track and behind the scenes. So it's been a tough year, but you know, we got some improving to do. We've had some tough breaks, like you said, but hey, that's the way the things go in this sport, and we'll look forward to a good year next year.
Been a great addition to have you on the IndyCar circuit. We're looking forward to 96. Thank you, Joe Montana. He's the grand marshal of all of this today. Now, there are a lot of other stories. Jan Beek has got one of them.
Well, Gary, starting in the 3rd position today, and of course coming off his best finish ever in an IndyCar race just last weekend in Vancouver. Now, this is just your best shot, you think, of winning one of these things?
Yeah, I think we got a chance today. You know, certainly push hard, try and beat Jacques and the rest of the guys, but it's going to be a tough, long afternoon, I think.
Gilles de Ferran starts on the inside of row 2. Paul?
Well, with 95 coming to an end, we look ahead to 1996 and some of the changes that may in fact occur there as we take a look at the starting field. They sit down on the front straightaway ready to go. We know, of course, that Jack heads off to Formula One after today. Teo Fabi remains with his Forsyth team, and there's the very real possibility that he's going to be joined by Greg Moore, the Indy Lights champion. Paul Tracy, he goes back to Roger Penske, the exercise of the option of his contract occurring there. Andre Ribeiro, well, he stays right where he is at Tasman and will be joined possibly by Scott Goodyear. That should be a nice combination. Arie Luyendyk, chances are good that he may be at RC Aero Wells. And Christian Fittipaldi, he heads off to Newman Haas to replace Paul Tracy. And speaking of Christian Fittipaldi, let's go to Gary Gerald.
Paul, we've talked so many times about the new faces that have made this 95 season so very exciting. Without question, the man driving his final race for Derek Walker this year is one of them. Christian Fittipaldi here getting final instructions in the cockpit. He's going to try to wrap up Rookie of the Year honors today, but he's got a long way to go in this one. His work is really cut out for him. He's back here in the 9th row. But as we mentioned, final drive now for Derek Walker's team. Paul Newman, incidentally, came by just minutes ago. Congratulated him. He'll be in the Newman Haas car next year. Paul?
All right, Christian Fittipaldi waits, as does the rest of the starting field for the command. For the final time in 1995 to start the engines, Danny Sullivan, recovering from his accident at the Michigan 500, the 88 champion here, is the fellow who will deliver the order to send them into life.
Gentlemen, start your engines.
All right, jack the well, baby. Raul Boisel fires up his machine. The rest of the field all starting their cars ready to go racing. 26 sit on the starting grid on the pit straight. Jacques Villeneuve, he's the man of the focus. Of course, Al Unser Jr. will try to carve up through this field, and we'll be back with a start after this. Come of the race.
And Paul, it concerns tires and not which brand any car uses. But for some reason, the abrasive surface here at Laguna Seca seems to destroy the rear tires on imbalanced cars in as little as 10 or 12 laps. Now, two of the well-balanced cars have been Brian Herta and Jacques Villeneuve, even in the sunshine and on worn tires. That could bode very well for those two drivers this afternoon.
Now, I want to show you the point standings right now at the top of the points order. And look in parentheses alongside Villeneuve and Al Unser Jr. Those are the points they would have if the current appeal would actually reverse the disqualification of Al Unser Jr. at Portland. It's kind of complicated, but Gary Gerald can make some sense of it for us.
Paul, there's no question now that this appeal has cast a big cloud of uncertainty over this final race of this season, but I think a couple of simple things to remember might help make it an easier day for all race fans. Keep this in mind. Jacques Villeneuve finishes 8th or better today. Regardless of the outcome of the appeal, Jacques wins the championship. Al Unser, however, if he finishes 3rd or worse, he's eliminated from any championship consideration, depending what happens with the appeal. Now, the appeal process begins September 18th. The 3-judge panel has been picked. They will hear the appeal that's been filed by Roger Penske, and then they will render a decision. But that's down the road. Junior, of course, is determined that he wants to keep the hopes alive as best he can today. He has to win this race. He's starting way back in 14th position. Nobody's ever won this race from that far back in the field. He's got a long way to go. But then remember, in the last 4 races, he's won 2. He's finished 2nd. He's finished 3rd. He wants to keep that roll going, Paul.
On the other hand, let's hope it gets decided on the racetrack here. Now behind the PPG safety cars, the field is rolling on the first warm-up lap. And when we come back, we'll look at how the field consists. Continue to warm up. Let's take a look at the starting grid here on the pole. Jacques Villeneuve. This is the 6th pole in his last 9 races, and all have been new track records. Alongside is Brian Herta. He makes his 3rd front row start in only his 22nd race. In row 2, Gilles de Ferran. 2nd place finish last week in Vancouver was a career best. And Teo Fabi. He won the first IndyCar race in Laguna back in '83. In row 3, Scott Pruitt, the Michigan 500 winner. And Mauricio Guzman. He's tied with Villeneuve for the most times running at the finish of a race. In row 4, it's Jimmy Vasser. He scored the 2nd highest number of points on natural road courses this year. And Paul Tracy, the winner of the last 2 races here at Laguna Seca in his last start for Newman Haas. Row 5, Andre Ribeiro. His best finish on a road course was 4th at CART Lake. And Parker Johnstone. This is his best ever start on a road course. In the 6th row, it's Bobby Rahal. He won 4 in a row here. And Michael Andretti, who led every lap on his way to wins in '91 and '92. In row 7, Raul Boisel. And Al Unser Jr., who must finish 3rd or better to defend his PPG title. In row 8, Adrian Fernandez and Robbie Gordon. In row 9, Christian Fittipaldi and Stefan Johansson. The 10th row, Juan Manuel Fangio and Emerson Fittipaldi. The 11th row, Frederick Ekblom and Carlos Guerrero. In row 12, Marco Greco and Alessandro Zampedri. And the 13th row, Mimo Chiatarella and Hiro Matsushita. So that's the way they line up here, as now behind the single Toyota PPG pace car, they line up. Here is the race analysis, 84 laps. Villeneuve needs that 8th or better if he's going to clinch the PPG Cup Championship. Fuel stops, 24th lap. And then depending on yellows, we'll see how it goes. Today's field, there's the lineup of chassis and engines. And the circuit here at Laguna Seca is magnificent. 7-story elevation difference. And where can you pass here? Well, fortunately, there are a number of good passing zones, but I'll tell you what, the competition is always close here. And where can you get in trouble? Now, we've got a whole group of places, and they're all the same as the passing zones. Let's go to Gary Gerald.
Team we haven't heard much from this weekend, Newman Haas. Consider their drivers have done in the last 4 years. Tracy winning at the last 2, Michael Andretti winning at the 2 years before. They start 8th and 12th today, but Michael told me after the morning warm-up session, they think they found the combination to get the car handling the way they wanted. He's very optimistic, even though he's starting at mid-pack. Jan?
Just a couple of quick points here. First of all, Derek talked about the tires, potential problems here. Think of the chassis that's kindest on the tires. A lot of people think it's the Penske chassis. Also, a lot of crew chiefs up and down pit road already calling their drivers saying, watch out for that first turn. It can be notorious here at Laguna Seca. Paul?
All right, behind that beautiful yellow Toyota pace car, Derek Daly. We're looking at a wave of changing age. Youth is really here.
The youth movement in IndyCar racing. Consider this fact. The front row of the grid today is 24.5 years of age on average. 2 years ago, Emerson and Paul Tracy were on the front row. That was an average of 35 years of age. And just 5 years ago, the average age was 45 years of age when Mario and Danny Sullivan started on the front row of the grid. So youth and bravery are to the forefront here at IndyCar racing.
They climb the hill now. This is up to the top of the elevation at this beautiful racetrack here, right on the edge of the former Fort Ord. And there is the corkscrew, a sudden dip, a turn to the left and downhill. It's like a roller coaster as you head down. And in competition, it's magnificent. There are 4 former Laguna winners in today's field. Teo Bobby Rahal, Michael Andretti, and Paul Tracy. Now they come sweeping down the hill. It's a very short lead from the final turn to the green flag as they turn onto the pit state. So they're going to try to assemble as best they can before the corner. And, of course, the starter will be watching them so very carefully. Jacques Villeneuve takes them off the corner. The revs come up. And here we go. The final race of the season is underway. Villeneuve takes him down into the first corner. DeFerrin tucks in very close. Herta works to the outside, as does Bobby. Down through the first corner, it's still Villeneuve. Bobby tries to make a move to the inside. Villeneuve runs all the way to the edge of the course. One car spinning at the back of the field. Not a factor. Gets off safely. Should be able to get back on.
That might have been one of the best starts we've seen.
Gordon.
It's Robbie Gordon to continue his disastrous weekend here. Started all the way back in 16th, and look at the buildup on that rear tire. So soft that rubber just sucks up the stones and the gravel offline.
Apparently nudged there, reporting by Adrian Fernandez. Now to the top of the hill as Villeneuve begins to pull out a bit of an advantage over second place, Brian Herta. And in third place, as we're going yellow, they're going to go to a full course yellow. And part of their concern has been throughout the weekend when a car gets off in some of those critical areas, they'll spray so much rock and sand on the track that it's dangerous for everyone behind. So now the front of the field slows down at the end of the first lap.
And I began to mention that was one of the best starts we have seen on a road course because they were 2 by 2, absolutely in tandem in a perfect drag race all the way down. So Brian Herta began to challenge Jacques Villeneuve, but we can have a look at it in replay as Robbie Gordon makes his way back on slowly. He gets tapped by Fernandez. That's Fernandez off the road.
No, everything's okay. If you need some tires, check those tires out.
Derek Walker talking with his driver, Robbie Gordon. Another look at this situation that brought out a full course yellow.
He tries to go outside Fernandez. Oh, he gets in trouble. And there's the impact. 2 cars trying to go on the one small piece of ground, and an early time to make an exit, even if you have a badly difficult handling car as Robbie Gordon has had here all weekend.
So Robbie Gordon gets it around and gets it back on the track. We're full course yellow at the conclusion of the first lap. We'll be back. Green flag racing at Laguna Seca. Very quick cleanup. Got the debris off the course. Robbie Gordon got back in line. And his tires and equipment all fine. So now we focus on Brian Herta to look back to third place. Gil DeFerrin. Teo Bobby is just behind him. And then Mauricio Guzman just ahead. Leading the race is Jacques Villeneuve. That's, of course, the position that he needs if he intends to take home the IndyCar Championship as the youngest ever to take it and the first from Canada.
And every one of these drivers knows how they must protect the 4 black boots that contact themselves to the road, because that has been the topical point here, particularly after the warm-up this morning. And the 2 leading cars are the 2 of the best handling cars throughout the morning warm-up this morning. Now moving back to Paul Tracy.
Paul Tracy and Scott Pruitt, 6th and 7th. Let's go on board with Paul Tracy. Back, Jill DeFerrin got around Brian Herta for 2nd place. Now Bobby moves on Herta. Bobby comes to the inside. Apparently something wrong there with Herta's car. We'll keep an eye on board here. Boy, look at the brakes lock up on DeFerrin just ahead.
Brian Herta is in trouble here because 3 places he's lost in less than 2 corners. Jan Beekes, you're down there?
Yes, Derek, when he came by the front straightaway, you could hear that he had a bad misfire with that forward power plant. So it's either electrical. This early in the race, it wouldn't be a broken header, so it must be electrical problems for Brian Herta.
We'll keep an eye on Brian Herta. Too bad that he didn't recognize that during that yellow. He might have been able to pop in and out with a quick change of electronics. Back on board Paul Tracy, just ahead, 6th place Scott Pruitt.
And just ahead of him is Brian Herta. He is a lame duck. He just went by our commentary booth here, and the engine sounds terrible. In fact, Jan, it does sound like a broken header, very similar to the problem I think Jimmy Vasser had last weekend. There he goes, another pass. He's going to have to make a pit stop. He's got no choice.
Gary Terrell, do you have a further update on Brian?
Just got a quick word with Chip Ganassi, and yes, it relates to the motor. They don't know if it's electronic specifically, not a header. They are going to bring him in. The crew is over the wall awaiting him now. Oh, such disappointment. This team has had so many of these days where they've just been dogged by tough luck, Paul.
Well, he's on the way to you now. Just turned on to the pit road, Gary. There's Brian Herta. Come off. They'll, of course, reach for the electronics. It's assuming that they don't see anything when they pull the engine calling. We can listen for the radio, too. Parker Johnstone, quick off, down in the 2nd turn. The hairpin at the end of the long pit straight.
Had terrible trouble this morning in the morning warm-up. Went to the line thinking he's going to have a lot of trouble with boost, and he's obviously stalled the engine here, so this may bring out a yellow flag. I don't know what benefit it will be to Brian Herta, because that engine problem sounded way too difficult to deal with in just a couple of seconds here. But Brian Herta didn't get his nickname High Speed Herta for nothing. It was a winner here in the Indy Lights series.
And they're going to get Parker Johnstone underway without having to go to a full course yellow, so that'll keep the track full green condition. IndyCar safety team does a spectacular job. We talk about all the marvelous volunteers as well, both from the marshals, the flag marshals, and folks from the SCCA, the San Francisco region up here, and the IndyCar volunteers, as there's a large group of those as well. Takes literally thousands to put any IndyCar race on, and you really have to thank them for the marvelous job they've done this year.
And they even work on announcers, as I know, because of what happened to me yesterday morning. So it's thanks to the people down there who put me back in shape. Believe it or not, I ended up on a stretcher yesterday morning, and the people down at the medical center and the Tony Lama Human Performance Center with Don Andrews got the nerve trapped out of the way, and I was back in business.
Al Unser Jr. moving on Jimmy Vasser. Derek Daly apparently spent too much time at an Irish pub in the area. What was, well, never mind. Jan Beekes.
We had a chance to check in Parker Johnstone's pit as he goes by the front straightaway with Doug Peterson. Asked him what happened. He said simply, he just lost it. Spun on his own. Paul?
All right, we continue to watch the move of Al Unser Jr. He is the kind of driver that does move forward very quickly, and that's absolutely the formula he needs today. Started 14th, now running 10th, up 4 positions. What he needs is first place. Michael Andretti working on Rivero. There's little Al lining up behind Rahal.
During our qualifying show yesterday, we asked Al Jr. what he lacked, and he simply said speed in qualifying. But now we're in a racing mode, which is totally different. And this Penske chassis, as Jan Beekes alluded to earlier, seems to have tire management down a little bit better than some of the other teams. And Al Jr. has enjoyed that type of race consistency. And, of course, he's used it to his benefit to win so many races this year. And now he may be a championship contender, but he's going to need a lot of help, maybe from yellow flags.
Al Unser Jr. His best finish, of course, his wins at Long Beach, Mid-Ohio, and last week at Vancouver. Tied for the most wins among active drivers with Michael, and if he wins today, he'll tie with Jack for the most wins of the season. That could figure into the way the championship is determined, because that's one of the tiebreakers.
And the team will tell you that they were mentally derailed after that disqualification at Portland, but Al Unser Jr. has pulled it all back together to become a contender, whereas this man, really his season fell apart, Paul.
8th place, Michael Andretti, has not been able to convert most laps led and poles into wins this year. He chases Andre Ribeiro right now.
Started 12th. Bad when you start back at the pack. Listen to the throttle. Suffered oversteer all weekend here. Back end sliding way too much. This is turn 5, 80 miles an hour at the apex. Right there, watch the climb uphill. Gets faster. 115 miles an hour before he gets on the brake. And now it goes even further uphill. 7 stories high. There's a braking zone up here, but he's not close enough. Famous corkscrew roller coaster plunge downhill, trying to catch Ribeiro.
Next passing zone is not this corner, but the one after it.
It's down to the hairpin, slowest corner. Can he get down the inside? Too far behind. Second gear, started all over again.
So Michael Andretti continues to work on Andre Ribeiro, though he has moved up 4 positions himself since the start of this race and currently runs in 8th place. The race is still led by Jack Villeneuve. He stays there. He has a championship. And as the rest of the field comes by safely now, they have, though, gone to a full course yellow, so they'll line the field up once again behind the PPG pace car. Let's go to Gary Gerald.
Chip Ganassi, this day started with such great promise. This has got to be the most frustrating thing an owner can go through. What's the problem?
Well, again, we have some engine problem that's really not related to any of my mechanics, and I've just really had enough of this. I mean, all season long we've been fighting these engine gremlins, and once again today it's caught us. You know, last week Vancouver with the other car, Vassar was the first lap thing. I mean, somebody's got to do some work to get these engines straightened out.
Thank you, Chip. Obviously a very frustrated man here. They hurt his engine. He's hoping to get back out, but he's lost so many laps. Let's go to Jan.
Well, Gary, from a frustrated owner to a very calculated one. Behind me, Roger Penske has been talking to Al Unser Jr., and he's trying to get him to be cautious. Take your time, telling him where he wants him to be on the fuel. They think they're A-OK here, and of course, just like Derek said, this full course yellow will really help them. Paul?
Al Unser Jr. and Roger Penske, 2 very calculating drivers. And Adrian Fernandez, who had contact up in the corkscrew, has to do a change of nose here, so the full course yellow is working to his advantage. Now, this year, one of the most famous sports personalities joined forces with Chip Ganassi. And earlier today, 3-time Super Bowl MVP Joe Montana took the Bank of America lap of honor in a 1995 Toyota Supra. Crowd loved that.
This is an incredible game of psychology going on right now. There's 2 different positions. Number 1, with Jacques having qualified on the pole, he is in an absolutely perfect spot right now because of the pace car situation. He's continuing to have clear track in front. Obviously, the other man in the game is Al Unser Jr. Having to start so far back, he has no choice. He has to push and run as hard as he can. The difficulty is always running into traffic, and an incident would take him out of the race and right out of the championship.
So we are still under full course yellow. The Ducati team, the Gallus Racing, they're working on Adrian Fernandez front nose. He got himself in trouble here. We'll take a look at what caused this situation. It was up in the corkscrew. Whoa, he just missed it.
And that was a classic case of understeer. You saw his wheels. Watch the front wheels. Turned, plow straight on. When you push like that, that's what you hear the drivers term as push or understeer. He's lucky he didn't collect that tire wall and do a lot more damage.
All right, so here is the running order after 9 of the 84 laps, with the significant change being the Brian Herta removal from second position, and de Baron now had, in fact, before the yellow, been closing right up on the back of Jacques Villeneuve. There is the entire order for you. And, of course, you can see by this, too, that Robbie Gordon continues to function all right after that off course early on. Another situation involving Adrian Fernandez. Here we are, green once again.
And to make this scenario very interesting, Gilles de Ferran on lap 7 set the fastest lap of the race. So right now, he has the fastest car out there. He may be a challenger to Villeneuve. But remember what Ganassi said earlier on, or what Brian Herta said. Villeneuve cannot take the type of chances that other drivers can.
Gary, what do you think? Is Villeneuve in trouble?
Well, we just checked with Barry Green, and they're a little bit concerned. Not a major problem, but the car has gone loose. He's got the oversteer situation, and so he's got a bit of a handful. And he said it's nothing, though, that we think we can't live with. They'll try to make an adjustment on his scheduled pit stop, probably sometime after lap 24, between 24 and 29.
Up to the top of the corkscrew, Jan Beekes. Jan Beekes?
Yes. Paul, when you had that great example that Derek described, the understeer that Adrian Fernandez had, and now we're hearing about oversteer, it turns out that almost all the crews, the majority of those, are calling in on their radio communication saying the cars are getting loose. So watch for that here in the early stages of what we might call phase 2 here before the first round of pit stops. Paul?
All right, watching Jacques Villeneuve. Now de Ferran not making that much headway on him.
Jan, unfortunately, you couldn't see the pictures, but that was not normal understeer that we saw with Fernandez. That was totally out of control understeer that was exaggerated when he went off onto the gravel trap.
Now de Ferran is able to close just a bit. As we watch this battle, Derek Daly, the comments by Chip Ganassi criticizing his engine program.
Well, that was interesting to me because we have to remember the Newman-Haas team with Michael Andretti and Tracy and the Ganassi team enjoy the Ford factory backing. So they should have all the resources they need to have the best of Ford engines. So that may just G Ford up a little bit to make sure those boys don't have those type of troubles in the future.
Tightest battle on the race course. Andretti, Rahal, Unser Jr., 8th, 9th, and 10th. You ride with Rahal. Remember that little Al, trying to pass Rahal at Toronto, got in trouble and crashed down in the first turn.
Downhill run. 115 miles an hour. That corner's all going to be different next year. This will not be the racetrack. They're going to redesign this facility, spending a lot of money to update this great racetrack here at Laguna Seca. Lengthen the pits. Pit boxes will be longer. They can start more cars. Oh,
look at the braking.
Run through the tire smoke here.
Al Unser Jr. sitting right on the back end. As a matter of fact, the folks here at Laguna Seca are going to make well over $1 million in improvements to this track. And especially part of the moving of that final turn is going to lengthen the pit lane. And that will allow them to start more cars because that's actually what limits the number of cars you can start here. Is how long your pit lane is. You don't want to jam them in. Remember, we've had some problems here in the past. Remember Johansson's situation a year ago?
Great pictures here, this uphill run.
And there's the corkscrew.
Woohoo! And television pictures do not even do it justice. It is literally a plunge over the side and a straight sheer drop down. And in the early laps, when you come here for the very first time, it is by far and away the most dramatic series of corners any driver has ever faced.
Al Unser Jr. continues to chase Rahal in 10th place, Jan Beekes.
Yes, and we've been listening to what Roger Penske has been coaching him along the way, and interestingly enough, they just told him to lean down the engine. They were at 94%. Now they're down to 92%. It'll be interesting to see if that shows on the track. Of course, that will take horsepower away from the machine, but it'll save fuel. So they're saving fuel. Obviously, it has to do with their pit strategy. I wonder if they'll still close in on that battle, Paul.
84 laps of scheduled distance, 14 laps complete. We've had 2 yellow flags, full course yellows, during that period of time. Al Unser Jr. continues to work on Rahal.
And of course, when you lean the fuel down, sometimes the decision is made because he's stuck behind Rahal. So if he's not able to go as fast as his car can run, if he is going to be behind Rahal, why not turn the fuel mixture down, put less fuel into the engine? You don't need the extra horsepower because you're stuck behind somebody. You can save the fuel for later. When you're clear on the racetrack by yourself, dump the fuel in, make more horsepower, and go faster.
And leaning the engine down now is not mechanical like it used to be, where you could really turn it too far. It's all chip control.
All electronic, and the telemetry in the pit lane can